Thank you for watching part one of the Blackboard Outcomes Assessment online training session. I'm going to walk you through the steps you need to get all set doing outcomes assessment. As one thing you'll want to keep in mind is that you will only want to do this once per program per department. You really want one person to be in charge of all the goals and kind of coordinating those. So it's really important that you talk with the other people in your department. Another recommendation is that you set up either, you can do this in Excel or you can do a simple Word document where you're going to go ahead and lay out how you're going to do the goal set, the categories, the goal ID, the unique ID, and the text. You want to determine all that ahead of time because once you get that in Blackboard, there are some parts you won't be able to edit and there will be some parts that will just be really hard to edit. So it's important that you have a living document everyone in your department can share so that you can determine within your goal set who's going to be the administrator on this. You might not have access to outcomes assessment right now, but you can contact the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Bill can give you access. But first, we can go ahead and set up the spreadsheet. Now this document I have is a template from the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, the OIE. And so you can contact them or you can contact iLearn if you want a copy of this. However, if you want to start from scratch, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. You're going to want to make a table with 4 columns, and each goal set is going to have its own table. So a goal set is simply what it sounds like, a set of goals held by the department. A goal category is the degree program for which you're entering goals. So this one's a certificate. There's just one goal category all throughout. However, for example, if I had maybe a BA in art and a BA in fine art photography, those might be 2 separate goals. They might have different goal information or different goals that I'm aligning to within the program. So it's really whatever the major is. So if a person's major was, a good example is family and consumer science, you can have a Bachelor of Art in Family and Consumer Sciences, emphasis fashion, or emphasis really anything that you want it to be. So I'm just using those as hypothetical examples. If you're watching this and you're from one of those departments, I don't know for sure that those are the titles of your goal categories, but I'm sure you know better than I do exactly what's in your program. So let's go ahead and start with a new sheet. I'm going to make a table, just a simple table in Microsoft Word. Remember, I have 4 columns, and I have one row that's going to be my titles, and then as many rows as I have goals. So for our purposes today, I'm only going to make a 3-row table. You can make as many as you'd like. The first column is the goal category. The second column, as you saw before, is the goal ID. The next column is the unique ID. And then finally, the text of the goal. What is actually written in that goal? Another common question is sometimes people will have parent and child goals. So in other words, those are basically goals and sub-goals. So in my example is going to be from the art department, and this is a fictional example that I made up. So if you're from the art department, don't feel confused by this or someone else think that I am in any way qualified to teach art. I'm not. But say, for example, you had communication. Goal 1 is communication. And under that, perhaps there are 2 sub-goals. Students will write effectively and students will speak effectively. Maybe that's something that I want to get across in my goals. You can put those in different columns if you want to. I really recommend doing that and then giving them an A or a B, C, D, etc. past the number. And that'll make more sense in a minute. So first I have my goal category. That is the college acronym, the department acronym, the degree program and specialization. All right, I'm going to go ahead and write that out. So for example, using my art example that I had before, CFA, the College of Fine Arts, space, hyphen, space. It's really important you get the spaces in there because otherwise they won't line up properly in order in outcomes, and everyone's goals at the moment are displayed in outcomes. So you want to make it so that they're in order and you can quickly sift through them. Art, because that's my department. Space, hyphen, space. BFA, this is for a Bachelor of Fine Arts. space, hyphen, space, in art. Maybe that's the name of the program I'm talking about right now, a BFA in art. Then I have my goal ID. All right, this is how I'm going to identify the goal when I'm talking with my colleagues. And like I said, you might want to put together a little committee to figure these out together and then just have the other faculty members aligned to them. That's really the best way to do. A lot of times groups will have accrediting bodies and they will have these lined up. So that makes it pretty easy for you. So then you go ahead and put the goal ID, which is going to be the same thing, the college acronym, CFA, College of Fine Arts, space, hyphen, space, the department or school acronym, art, space, hyphen, space, the degree program, BFA, hyphen, space, art, and then the written name of the goal. Oop, I made a mistake. See how easy it is to get off the line with there? And I'm going to put communication. This is going to be my goal. Next is the unique ID. When you go to put these in Blackboard, you'll see that this is not a required field. However, I really recommend you create a unique ID because that's how Blackboard sorts these IDs. You cannot change them later. And if you just leave it blank, they'll give you a long string of numbers that will be next to impossible to remember. So don't do that. If you want to, you can copy and paste here. And then just shorten the goal. It's good to abbreviate it here. That way it won't be too long. And then finally, the text. This is the full written description of the goal preceded by a number and a hyphen. I really recommend that you make this a 3-digit number starting with zeros. That way you have the flexibility to get up into 100 goals. I hope you don't have 100 goals. If you do, maybe you need to have some talks with the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and try to narrow those down a little bit. However, there may be cases where that is a real thing. And so as a result, I would just go ahead and put as many digits as you feel you'll need, 001, space, dash, space, and then the text of that goal. So that's my goal, and I have one line done. This process might seem a little tedious to you, but it's pretty important to make sure that we get this done in the right way, because then it's going to be a breeze once you put it in Blackboard. This is by far the hardest part of setting up the architecture of outcomes assessment. So I'm going to use the example now that maybe I have a sub-goal, a child goal, if you will, to add in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So to save myself time, I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to paste again. And this one will be, I'll call it written communication. So in my example, remember I said written communication was part of what I was trying to do. So I'll just paste again. And I'll just call it WritCom. You can call it whatever you want to, just make sure that you've all agreed on that. And here is where I was getting into the specific letters. So 001A. Students, will write effectively. And just remember, I'm making all these goals up kind of off the top of my head, so you'll know better goals than I do. I'm gonna go ahead and try to add. Well, I guess what I'm saying is you can add in some more rows if you'd like to here. I thought you could right-click, but I guess I'm not able to. And then I just keep doing the same way. And this gets a little tedious maybe. But once you get going, it's not too bad. So you just keep going. You can add in as many as you need to. As you saw, I was just adding rows below. So this is just a regular Microsoft Word table that I'm making. Feel free to do it in Excel if you find that easier. I just know sometimes people feel a little intimidated by Excel. So I just started with Microsoft Word. You can choose whatever you want to. So once you have this all finished, I will show you the next step of how you're going to start building this out in Blackboard.